Sir Winston Churchill had a famous speech when he was Prime Minister of England, and he went back to the little school that he grew up in, and the students asked him what would be some advice that he would give them. And he gave a speech which is known as the Never Give Up speech. And he just said to them, whatever happens to you in life, just never, ever, 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 ever give up. And it's just a wonderful speech. You know what? Every single time he comes through, you never think it at the time. You think, how like that saying is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I got to tell you, I've looked to the ceiling a few times and said, I'm strong enough. All right.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It's my pleasure to have John Dwyer with us. John helps business owners understand how to attract new customers by using incentive-based marketing offers that can be targeted specifically to certain audiences. One of his most successful incentive offers was a free vacation with a home loan for an Aussie bank. And Jerry Seinfeld was spokesman. John, it's so great to have you on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, Stephan.
So first of all, I'd love to hear your origin story, how you got into the marketing world and the speaking world. You speak at events, right? At conferences, keynote speeches, and so forth.
Look, I won't give you the boring version of it. I'll do a very quick version. In my late teens and early 20s, I was reasonably good at artwork, so I used to use this sort of thing. And then I realized that there was not going to be a lot of money in artwork because digital world was coming along. And of course, now with AI and Mid-Journey, of course, I'd hate to be an artist or a copywriter these days. But so I decided to get into the advertising game. I thought maybe if I get into advertising and marketing, then I can use my creative skills I thought that I had. And so that's what I did. I got into the advertising world, and I worked for a couple of the bigger companies here in Australia. The biggest supermarket chain in Australia, as you can tell from my accent, I'm down under, is a supermarket chain called Woolworths. And I worked for them for a few years. And Woolworths were using a lot of techniques out of London. The Tesco business in London is very well known for their direct response marketing skills. And so we were doing stamp collection promotions where every time you spend $10, you got a stamp and you licked it and you put it on a saver sheet to get cheap cookware and glassware and all that sort of stuff. And then we moved on to do scratch games to give away millions of dollars in scratch bingos and all this. I thought, listen, I might leave and set up my own business. So that's what I did. I left the employment game and decided to be the employer, for better or for worse. And we set up an agency, and that's what we still do today. I mean, it's a different agency now. I've sold the one that we first set up. But basically, it's direct response marketing, which is all about advertising on Facebook today and getting a result tomorrow. Whereas, Stephan, branding is all about building your brand over a period of time.
Right. And do you speak at a lot of events, conferences and seminars? And is that part of your own marketing?
Yeah, look, being the shy little devil that I'm not, I quite enjoy giving presentations at conventions and expos and conferences and things. And look, a lot of the bigger businesses, I came from the corporate world, as I just mentioned, a lot of the big businesses don't really understand direct response marketing. And I always highlight to them that it's great to build the brand. I mean, we buy Toyota or Kellogg's because of the brand. But for smaller businesses that don't have that sort of money to sponsor the Olympics and build their brand, then they should be thinking about direct response marketing. And when you think about it, McDonald's have been doing it for about 45, 50 years with the toy in the Happy Meal box. And Kellogg's have been doing it for about the same time. And even Amazon do it. When you join the Amazon Prime membership, then you get additional, free shipping and free movies and free music. But 97% of businesses just have never used what we call direct response marketing. And a big part of that is using incentives. And so therefore, when I'm speaking on stage at conventions, I always ask the audience, can you put your hand up if you've ever had a Happy Meal toy for your business? Nobody ever puts their hand up because hardly any business has used incentives to build trade.
So what would be an example of, let's say, a service business that you helped set up incentive offers? Maybe it's an accountancy or a law firm or some sort of services company, because that's probably outside of the box for their thinking.
It is. Yeah, no, when you talk about services businesses, and a lot of those could be trades, for example, plumbers and electricians and builders and concreters, as well as accountants and lawyers, they tend to, sell their services on price. And I keep on saying to them, well, if you're selling your electrical services or your plumbing services on price, then the guy down the road can beat you in a heartbeat. Whereas if you said, look, use my services and I will give you a free movie pass, or I'll give you a free dining voucher, or I'll give you, fuel discounts, gas discounts, or I'll give you a free vacation. If you do anything like that, I've nicknamed a Happy Meal toy, the guy down the road can't match you. And he might over time, but he certainly can't match you like he can if you decided that you would drop your prices by 20%. He can be 25% less in 5 minutes. And a good example probably would be recently we had a turf farm, so they sell grass, to not the grass that some of your watchers or listeners might be thinking, oh, we're talking about turf for the front lawn and the back lawn. And their target audience were landscapers because, mum and dad will only buy the front lawn or the back lawn's worth of grass, but a landscaper will buy maybe 3 or 4 or 5 homes worth of grass. So I said to him, well, look, what do you think their Happy Meal toy might be? And the owner of this turf business said, I don't know, you tell me. I said, I think beer. 99% of landscapers would love beer. And so therefore, if your target audience are landscapers, then why don't we offer them a carton of premium beer, which is 24 bottles of beer, every time they buy a home's worth of grass from you. Now, his turf farm had about 3 miles worth of turf. It was a gigantic acreage. And after we sent out the notification to the landscapers that for every home they bought, they got a carton of premium beer, he rang me 4 days afterwards and said, we've got a problem. I said, what's your problem? He said, we've run out of grass. I said, what? You just went through 3 miles worth of grass. He said, yeah, I can't believe it. He said, even the biggest pain in the butt that used to ring me and say, look, I can get the grass, $5 a yard down the road, you're $5.50. So he used to always buy on price. He rang me and said, I need 18 cartons of beer and I'm ordering 18 homes worth of grass. I don't care when the grass gets here, but I need the beer by Friday. I've got a party. So that's a classic case of taking the eyes off the price. And that guy, this was a few years ago that we ran that campaign. And of course, he had to clear the grass because it was coming up to spring and he wanted to replant again. And so it was very important that he got rid of his 3 miles worth of grass. But he just does that every year now. So he's got something which he can rinse and repeat.
That's awesome. So how do you, what's your process for dreaming up these ideas for the Happy Meal inside?
Yeah, I guess really when it comes down to it, it's choosing a reward, choosing an incentive that suits the audience. So if I was to go in and buy a shirt from a menswear store, it'd be silly if they gave me a skateboard. At this age, I'm not going to use a skateboard. But if they gave me a movie pass for 2 people, that's a different thing, or a dining voucher, or petrol discounts, fuel discounts. And what we try to do is come up with incentives that suit the target audience. And the one that we've come up with in recent years is this thing here. It's a vacation voucher. And what we do is that we actually provide to business owners now the opportunity to give away a vacation for 3 to 7 nights in Europe, America, Australia, Mexico, Canada. And essentially what's happened is that we've bumped into a travel company that saw one of my promotions and they said, look, we've got access to unsold hotel rooms around the world. Do you want to join forces and pay us a royalty? And you put together a promotion whereby you provide businesses with a Happy Meal toy, which is a free vacation. And I said, yeah, look, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. And so that's what we do now. This vacation voucher gives people 3 to 7 nights accommodation at 4-star hotels around the world. And it's worth up to about $1,000, but they buy it from us for less than $50. So what happens is that just like the reason the McDonald's toy works is because the cost of producing that toy in China is 20 cents. When you get it out of the Happy Meal box from McDonald's, it looks like a $4 or $5 toy. So it's a low cost but high perceived value. And that's why the vacation thing works, is not only is it, it's appealing to all ages, but also it only costs them $50, but they're giving away something worth $1,000. And that's why it works. And the only reason I bring that up, Stephan, is because we've got clients who have a large, wide demographic and they want something that suits a 20-year-old and an 80-year-old. And that's why vacation, of course, comes in perfectly.
Do people think that there's a catch when they get this voucher, thinking that, oh, am I going to get sold like one of those timeshare things, high pressure tactics and all that sort of uncomfortable stuff?
In fact, I thought the same thing. How it came about is that some years back, I had a client in Australia that was a bank, a building society called the Grader. And what we did is that we actually stopped giving away the 1% honeymoon rate on home loans, and we just gave that to a travel company, and the travel company gave discounted travel. So what we did is we came on TV and said, get a home loan from us and we'll give you a free vacation. The thing went nuts. We got an extra $15 billion worth of home loans in the first couple of years. And this idiot who you're talking to, by the way, charged a consultancy fee instead of a percentage, right? I wish I'd charged a percentage, but it went nuts. It went crazy. And about 4 years into the campaign, I convinced Jerry Seinfeld to actually be the spokesperson. So therefore, I'm name dropping. I apologise for that. But I flew to America throughout 3 years, and we had Jerry Seinfeld standing outside a mock-up bank that we had back in Australia, because we filmed the commercials not far away from where he lived in New York. And Jerry Seinfeld said, come and get a home loan through, or swap your home loan from another bank across to this bank and you get a free vacation. Well, when you got Jerry Seinfeld, doing your ads, it's pretty hard to keep it a secret. So this travel company contacted me just before COVID, and they said, look, we've seen your Seinfeld campaign. You obviously know how to market vacations as a Happy Meal toy. How about we join forces? And when they told me about this, I said, look, this is too good to be true. It's great. It can't be true. There must be a catch. Do they lock people in the room and do the timeshare presentation? They said, no, none of that. All it is that outside of school vacations, most of these, resorts around the world are running at about 30% vacancy. So they've got about a third of their rooms vacant outside of Christmas and Easter and school vacation. So they've decided they might as well give it up for free and hope that whoever stays there spends money on food and beverage. So that's how it works. The hotels basically win because they fill empty rooms. The business wins because it's got a Happy Meal toy from heaven. And of course, their consumer wins because they've got a free vacation. So it's basically one of those, sort of win-win things where the hotels fill empty rooms and make money out of food and beverage, and the business hands out these vouchers and hopefully sells more refrigerators or whatever they sell.
So what would be an example of one of these sorts of incentives that's really outside the box that you wouldn't imagine that a company would offer? Like, I can imagine a free vacation. I can imagine a movie voucher, or and maybe a shopping voucher or gift card, that sort of thing. But what would be something really out there?
This is a joke I'm about to tell you to answer that because, and I'll answer it in a serious way in just a second, but I was doing a conference at Santa Monica in America on the West Coast. And you're probably familiar. I've been a member of Joe Polish's Genius Network and all the Russell Brunson stuff and Ryan Dias and all that. So I've been in that whole circle. And on one occasion, when I went over for one of the Joe Polish things in Phoenix, I did an event in Santa Monica, and I was doing the usual song and dance about incentive-based marketing and so forth. And an American guy asked me during the presentation, "Look, I've got a funeral parlor. How would this work for me?" Well, of course, the answer really is no, right? But I took the mickey out of him and said, "Well, listen, have you ever been to Australia?" And he said, "Yeah, a couple of times." And I said, "Well, you'll notice the supermarkets have a reward program called Flybuys," and they do. It basically, you get points and you save them up to catch airlines, all right? So that's why it's called Flybuys. And he said, "Yeah, I'm familiar with that." I said, "Okay, well, what we'll do is that we'll actually set up an incentive program for your funeral parlor, and we'll call it Die Buys," right? I was joking, but I wasn't seeing the facial expression from him recognizing that it was a joke. He went, "What?" I said, "Yeah, Die Buys, and what it is that we invite you to let us burn your relative, and you get relatives and you get points, and then at the end you can cash those points in for free gravestones, like headstones." And it was only then that he got it. There was a joke, right? I was treading a fine line. Look, in terms of weird incentives, the sort of things that I've seen that are silly, in my mind are silly, are when somebody gives away points that you save up and then you get more of their product. I'll give you an example. There's a sushi business here in Australia called Sushi Train. They might be in America too, I'm not sure. And this sushi train, of course, you go in there, and it's a usual sushi restaurant whereby the little train of all the meals are going around and you pick out which one you want. What they do is that depending upon your expenditure, they give you points. They give you sushi, the Japanese sushi points, right? And when you save up your points, you can use those to have free meals. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. It's better than doing nothing. But if they transferred the free meals into something that hasn't got anything to do with their business, so therefore it was fuel discounts at the gas station, or if it was a movie pass or dining voucher, or dare I say, a holiday voucher, that promotion would be 100% more successful. And the reason I say that is that I'm a member of an organisation here down under called ADMA, ADMA, and it stands for the Australian Direct Marketing Association. And they have their little Academy Awards every year. And what they do is that they give an award for the most successful direct response marketing. And not the most creative, but the most successful. not once has a reward program won whereby they're giving away more of their product. The ones that win are the most successful ones are whereby they give away something that has nothing to do with their product, e.g. a toy and a hamburger at McDonald's. Toy's got nothing at all to do with food, all right? And so therefore, I would suggest to anyone who might be watching or listening to this, if you're coming up with, if you're thinking about an incentive for your product, think of one that is not related to giving them more of your product.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And does there need to be some sort of relevancy factor, like even tangentially related to your product or your company or your target market, so your industry, anything like that, or can it be completely unrelated?
Yeah, but rather than Coca-Cola giving away points and then giving you more Coke, what I would suggest to Coca-Cola, and I'm making this up by the way, they're not doing that, but I'm making it up. But what I would recommend that they do is, obviously have a proof of purchase through barcodes or whatever it might be, and instead of offering people more of their product, offer people half a dozen drinking glasses with the Coke logos, and maybe it might be the old logos from 1950 through to now, for example. So therefore, people are collecting a set of glasses. So when I was working for that supermarket chain in my early 20s, which was like 1,000 years ago, what we would do is that for every $10 you spent, you got a stamp. And again, it was pre-digital. So therefore, you would lick the stamp and put it onto what we called a saver sheet. And you would have to save up 10 of those stamps, which meant that you spent $100 for you to get a glassware or cookware. It might be a frying pan, or it might be a glass, or it might be a dessert bowl, or whatever it might have been. And so therefore, what we were doing is encouraging them to shop at our supermarket chain, and relevant to whatever they spent, they could cash in on one of these, cookware or glassware. And that's what I would say to anyone who might be watching or listening to this and thinking, oh, okay, the incentive thing makes sense. What should I do? Yeah, find something that would obviously relevant to your target audience, but if it is relevant to your products, like for example, in Coca-Cola's instance, they collect glasses. I mean, you would have seen, Stephan, I'm sure over the years, McDonald's jumps on the Olympics bandwagon every time. And when the Olympics come around, McDonald's actually have a set of glasses that you can collect. So you buy their product, you get one of these glasses, and of course there's 4 or 5 or 6 into the set. And we call that a continuity promotion. Once you're on it, it's like a drug habit. You got to get the whole 6 glasses. You can't get off.
Right. So having a set that people want to, they feel like they need to complete is a really powerful way to keep the purchases going.
It is, and it won't come as a surprise to you that part of my background is taking out the licensing for bubblegum trading cards. So in America, of course, boys more than girls, but a lot of people grow up on collecting the baseball cards or the basketball cards and so forth. Here in Australia, our major sport is rugby league, so it's our version of gridiron. And I had the license for that for a number of years. And of course, the beauty of that is that once the kids are buying the first packet of trading cards, and of course they're on, dare I say, a habit, and they've got to go to the drugstore and pay $2 for the next packet of cards. And what we would do here, it makes me sound very evil, but what we would do is that we'd go to the Murdoch newspapers and we would give them millions and millions and millions of free trading cards. And then what they would do is come on TV on Friday, Saturday, and they'd say, buy the Sunday paper and you get 2 free trading cards of your favourite players. And of course, the evil, sort of target was that the kids would get these, they'd taste test them and go, Mummy, Daddy, I want to buy more trading cards. And of course, it would launch the whole program. And before we knew it, and to give you an idea of the success of doing sampling, because that's a big part of, really direct response marketing, we took that business from $2 million the year before turnover, which was a bubblegum company. And when we got involved, which was a marketing company, we took it from 2 to 12 million in 1 year, simply because we handed out samples. By the way, Stephan, none of my friends at the time who had children, I mean, I've got 6 children, they're all grown up and left home now, but this was 20 something years ago. So we all had young children at the time. And all of my friends hated me because they kept on saying, would you stop giving away those free cards in the newspaper? Because once little Jimmy gets involved in it, it costs us $300 to complete the set. I said, oh, well, you're paying for my annual vacation.
Gotcha. Okay. So what are some of the other tactics and strategies that you've got in your arsenal? I know you've got a whole book, the Wow Manifesto. You've got whole set of tricks up your sleeve. So what are some other ones?
Well, I'm glad. And for those who are watching or listening, this has not been set up. Stephan has asked me this question, and I just happen to have Exhibit A here. But when I was asked to write a book, because when you do these seminars and conferences, you've got to write a book to supposedly, showcase that you have got half a clue. So I thought if my business is called the Institute of Wow.com, that I better write a book that actually, I guess embodies that. So it's ridiculous, but this is the size of a tabloid newspaper. So that's the book that I wrote, and it's called the Wow Manifesto. I had a photo, this was a few years old now, so it didn't have so many wrinkles, but nonetheless, that's me on the front page. And in this is 300 pages of the most successful direct response concepts that I've run over the years. So I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to keeping information about successful campaigns. So this is a giant swipe file, and the reason I'm showing off about it is because I'm more than happy to give this for free to whoever's watching or listening this. If it's okay with you, Stephan, I'll give them a URL where they can just download this. It'll be a digital copy.
Yep.
This costs $420 a book to print, so I can't send out the book. But with your permission, I would just give anybody the URL if they wanted to get it. Is that all right?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, because if you said no, then that would be a real downer. So if you just go to wowmanifesto.com /gift, GIFT. So wowmanifesto.com /gift, GIFT. So that's that. But when you, and in that book, the reason it was timely to bring that up now when you mentioned it, when you said, look, what other tricks you've got up your sleeve, it's all in that manual. That manual there, the manifesto, has the most successful direct response campaigns across 20 years, and they're all timeless. So therefore, whether something was marketed through TV or radio maybe 10 or 12 or 15 years ago, it may now be marketed through Facebook or Instagram. The concept is the thing that you're looking for as a business owner. But we have a whole range of things. We do the $1 million giveaways. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with, Stephan, the fact that, who wants to be a millionaire on TV? The network doesn't give any of that money away. That's being given away by an insurance company. And so therefore the network pays the insurance company based on the difficulty of the questions. And we have a similar package where we provide businesses with $50,000 or $100,000 or $1 million to give away. And so a business can get $1 million giveaway for less than 20 grand. And so what happens is that they say, buy my product or service, and you've got a ticket in the $1 million draw. They pay the insurance company, they pay us. We've got a small margin for marketing and, of course, we're packaging it. But essentially, the insurance company gives them the $1 million for less than 20 grand, and then they promote that for a month or two, whatever it might be, buy my product or service, and you've got the chance to win $1 million. And that certainly, expands their target audience. And then at the end of it, when someone's drawn, they have to choose between, maybe 100 or 200 envelopes on a boardroom table, or they go online and there's a chocolate wheel with 100 numbers on it, and they choose a number, and if that number comes up, they win the $1 million. If it doesn't, then they win a consolation prize, which might be a vacation or a motor car or $1,000 in cash or whatever it might be. So there's the insured promotions. We do fuel discounts where we provide businesses with the opportunity to give their customers a fuel discount, as in at the gas stations, and a whole host of other. What we found with small and medium-sized businesses, Stephan, and you probably have found the same thing. They don't have a lot of time for learning, but what they want is done for you. So what we've done is that we've actually packaged done for you promotions for them, be it the vacation program like that, or whether it's the fuel discounts, or whether it's the $1 million giveaway. We package it for them and just give it to them, because what we've found is that they're pretty good technicians, but they don't have a lot of time to do their own marketing.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Why did you call your book a manifesto? What is it about a manifesto that made it compelling?
It's funny, you should say that, because I don't know whether I can answer that, because a buddy of mine a few years ago said to me, look, if you're going to write a book, why don't you do a big one? I wish I could claim it was my idea. His name is Glenn Wolford, great mate. And I said, oh, what are you talking about? He said, well, you're the Institute of Wow.com, so, you want to make sure that, whatever you do in a book's going to be different. Why don't you do a big book? And so it was actually his idea. And I said to him, okay. And he said, you want to know what you ought to call it? And I said, but you tell me. I'm supposed to be the ideas guy, and this mate of mine was giving me the ideas. He said, call it the Wow Manifesto. And to be honest with you, I haven't Googled the word manifesto lately, but I assume it means, I guess, recipe. Is that what it means? I mean, it'd be interesting to find out what it means, because this is new to me.
Yeah. So A manifesto is something that's kind of like a call to arms, call to action. It sets up a movement, or it starts a movement, right? It catalyzes a worldwide change or action. And yeah, so if you have something that you want to declare, or you have a strong values or principles or views that you want to convey in a book, that's where a manifesto comes in. That's my understanding of it.
Well, I'm going to wipe the sweat from my brow because I thought you were going to bring up Google and say that it meant nothing to do with any of that. And then I would have rung up my buddy Glenn and said, "Oh, thank you very much. I've just been embarrassed on a podcast." You know what I have to say to any business owner or any entrepreneur that's wanting to, set up a business is that, they should forget, about whether or not, my mantra is part of their thinking. What I always say to my 6 millennial kids, and I don't know whether they're listening or not, they tend to listen when they get a mortgage. Yeah, dad has half a brain when they got a mortgage, and they say, "Dad, how do we have a side hustle to, pay the bank back every month?" But up until then, I don't think they knew what I did for a living. But I always say to them, look, hang around people who are why not people, not why. Because, what you'll find is a lot of operational people, when you give them an idea, and that would be accountants, or it would be lawyers, or it might be, it might be even just operational people in your business. They tend to say, "Oh, but why? Why would you do that?" And what I found over the years that if I hang around with some crazy people who go, "Why not?" And I'm not saying that you have to, sort of put the farm up with every silly idea, but I have found, and I've tried to encourage my kids to hang around with people who say, "Why not?" You've still got to put whatever that idea is under the microscope, but it is much more enjoyable dealing with positive thinking people. "Oh, yeah, why not? Give that a shot." And that doesn't matter whether it's Facebook advertising, or whether it's a product, or whether it's branding, or, it doesn't matter what the actual subject matter is. It's just nice to hang around people who are encouraging you to have a go.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you using some of your techniques, incentives, and all these other kind of tactics in your own marketing beyond this manifesto book, and beyond speaking at conferences and trade shows and so forth?
Yeah, it's funny. I guess you're asking, do I drink my own Kool-Aid, which is a very,
Yeah,
very
or
good
eat your
question.
own dog food, whichever analogy you prefer.
Because the thing is that I'm almost embarrassed to be in this seminar industry, because I came into it a dozen years ago simply because I said to my wife, "Look, I mean, we had the Greater Building Society, which was the Seinfeld campaign. They were paying me 35K a month. So that was a nice client to have. And I had a few casinos in Australia. We don't call them casinos. They're called leagues clubs, but they've got poker machines and gambling in them. And they were paying $10,000 or $12,000 a month. It wasn't that difficult to earn, quite a bit of money with the big corporates. But I said to my wife, "Look, we're not getting any younger, and why don't we do this? Why don't we swap from the corporates to smaller to medium-sized businesses, and provide them with the intellectual property of this sort of marketing mantra?" And she said, "No, you don't. Stick to your knitting," right? Because I think we had 2 or 3 kids still at school at that stage. Anyway, I won the argument, and we jumped into the small business world, and it was a real culture shock for me, a massive culture shock, because I'd been used to speaking in boardrooms, whereas if I brought up KPI in some of the seminars, they thought I was talking about a new chicken chain. So I was a bit worried for a while. I thought, "Oh, what have I done?" Because it took 6 to 12 months to recognise that small and medium-sized businesses want it done for them. They don't want to necessarily go back to university or college. They want it done for them. And so therefore, that's what I've done. And what I do these days, if I'm on stage, is, I drink my own Kool-Aid. For example, one recently where it was car dealerships. And I said to the car dealership owners, "How many cars do you sell after 10 test drives?" And they said around about 2. Some sold 3 or 4, but 2 or 3. And I said, "Okay, so your aim should be to get people to come and take test drives, because if you have 20 test drives, you're probably going to sell 6 cars." And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, here's your answer. Here's your answer. Can you imagine if you get this offers for $50, vacation voucher, and then you say, 'Look, come and have a test drive, and I will give you a free vacation.' Do you think that might encourage more people to take a test drive?" And they went, "Yep." And I said, "What we would do is discourage the tire kickers by making sure that when they actually see the Facebook ad and go through to a landing page, you pre-qualify them to ask them, 'Are you in the are you in the market for a new car? How old is your car at the moment? What range? Basically, to make sure that they've got a driver's license and they're going to be a prospect to buy a car. And then when they come in and do the test drive, of course, you give them their free vacation. And you could see that everyone was very intrigued with this, but same old story, too good to be true. So what I did, I said, look, I'll show you how this works. Who wants to actually win one of these vacations? And I get them to put their hand up, and the guy comes up on stage. I pick one. And I say, look, who's the president of the United States at the moment? Is it Jim Carrey or is it Joe Biden? Make a really easy one. He goes, Joe Biden. I say, well, congratulations. Here's a free vacation for you. And when he goes back to his seat, I ask all the other 100 car dealers in the room, who would like to be Jim? Just want a vacation. And they all go, yeah, of course we would. I said, okay, well, you've got a vacation. You've got a vacation. I do the Oprah motor car thing where she gave a motor car to everyone. And I say, just look under your seat because you've got a vacation. You've got a vacation. And you can see them dancing, all jumping up and down. Wow, we've got to tell 100 guys who've got vacations. Guess what? At the end of that, when they've all settled down after 30 seconds, I say, there's proof that incentives work. You guys have just been convinced that incentives work because I got you to jump up and down because you got a free vacation. So, yeah, if you do that in front of people and you highlight to them the adrenaline rush of getting something for free, everyone understands how powerful it is.
A great example. Now, you mentioned Jerry Seinfeld earlier. How did you land him specifically, and why did you target him as the potential spokesman?
Good question. Excellent question. And Stephan, I've milked the daylights out of the Seinfeld thing for the last number of years, as you would. Not many times you get to work with a superstar like that. So how it came about is that this bank, as I said, in Australia, called the Greater Building Society, get a home loan, get a free vacation, and it went nuts. And then when we put Seinfeld involved in it, of course, it went to another level. What had happened is that the first 3 or 4 years of running that campaign, get a home loan and get a free vacation, and it brought in billions of dollars worth of extra home loans, we figured that we'd sort of got the low-lying fruit. So a building society tends to have an audience which is more working class. A bank like the Wells Fargo tends to have people with a business suit or a coat on. And so therefore we realised that we'd scooped up a lot of the low-lying fruit, which is working class people. And the general manager, the CEO of the bank, said to me, John, can you think of something that would actually attract a higher level? And I said, okay, well, let me think about it. And a friend of mine in the advertising world had just been using Billy Connolly to promote a product. And I said, how do you get Billy Connolly, the Scottish comedian? And he said, look, wherever he is in the world, we just fly to him and then he gives us a day of his time. We shoot a dozen commercials and we fly back to Australia and we hand it over to him, $2 million. I said, okay, well, yeah, I'll give that a shot. So we put out a survey to all the members of the Building Society and others, and we said, if there was a personality that would promote this bank, who do you think would be suitable? And it was a good survey to run because up until then, we'd been very cheeky. We took on a Richard Branson Virgin sort of, mentality in terms of branding. We would say to people, why would you stay with the Wells Fargo style bank and they treat you like a number when you can come across to our building society and you can actually be treated like a person? So you'll see imagery where the bank manager's talking to someone in the bank and the usual thing. And also, guess what? You don't pay any of those bank fees and you get a free vacation. So it was a pretty compelling good versus evil, if you like, discussion. And so therefore, what happened is that when we were going to look for a personality and put out the survey, then the results that came back said, look, we think that the sort of person that would be ideal to promote the building society would be someone like Jim Carrey or Robin Williams or Seinfeld. And I thought, oh, what have I done? I've just created a nightmare for myself because little did I know it was going to come back with names like that. And I thought, okay, well, fair enough. So anyway, as it turned out, I annoyed the daylights out of Jerry Seinfeld's manager, a guy called George Shapiro, for months after months. And I used every trick in the book. I'd leave messages, I'd send emails, and I was a nuisance. And eventually George rang me, George Shapiro, his manager of 40 years, and said, listen, what do you want Jerry to do? I said, basically, we'll just come to wherever he is and we will build a fake building society inside an empty shop somewhere. And he just stands outside and does his stand-up. And when he's doing his stand-up, obviously he's promoting the free vacation. He said, leave it with me. And you wouldn't believe it. Within 24 hours, he came back and said, Jerry said it's a good idea. Now, the thing is, back at the time that we did this, no one knew what we paid Jerry, but we paid him $1.1 million a year for 3 years. So that's 3.3 million. So, I mean, to him, it's nothing because he's got more money than God. But, to anyone, I mean, it's still a very cost-effective campaign because if you think about even here in Australia, we were paying at the time, not me, but other businesses were paying an equivalent amount of money just for a local cricketer or local baseball player. This is the biggest comedian in the world, and we got him for that price. But anyways, as it turned out, we pulled it off, and I went backwards and forth to New York and did the ads with Jerry. And I remember saying to him at one time, why did you say yes to this? You've got more money than God. And despite, for all of us, for most of us, that's a lot of money to be paid. You don't need it. Why did you say yes? And he said, well, one, because, the scripts basically asked me to take the mickey out of the banks, and I take the mickey for a living. So he said, I thought that was funny. I like the Aussie sense of humour. And he said the second reason, and the main reason, was that I thought if I didn't say yes, you'd never go away. So I said to him, well, persistence beats intelligence. Luckily for me, because I'm not that intelligent.
That's funny. Well, congratulations on that. I'm sure that really set you up for a really successful career after that. I'm curious if you've had other successes with clients getting big celebrity spokespeople to represent their brands.
Look, I think the best story I could give you, Stephan, is that I'm an entrepreneur, and like all entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you experience the same. It's a roller coaster. It's not a merry-go-round because you make your money and you put it on the next project, and sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Back when I was doing the bubblegum cards, 20-something years ago, we would take out the licenses with Disney to do Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast or Lion King or whatever it might have been. DreamWorks, the same thing. And what we would do is we produce the bubblegum cards that kids go to, in Australia it's the news agencies, but they might go to drugstores in America, and they collect the cards. And as I said to you before, the beauty of having those trading cards as a product is that once the kids have got a certain number of cards, they keep on buying the rest of them, of course. I was over in Los Angeles visiting Disney to do another deal for trading cards, and my general manager at the time, we had about 20 staff, he made a big printing mistake, and I forget what series it was, Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast, but anyway, the numbers were wrong, and the cards were printed upside down and all sorts of things whilst I was away, and we lost 2.2 million in a week. And so he was greeting me at the airport when I returned with this bad news. And, consequently, we basically lost everything, lost our house and what have you. And I remember calling the church one morning and just asking the big guy upstairs, is there any chance I could get back on my feet? I promised that I'd do something to inspire other people. Well, you wouldn't believe it. Just as the bank was about to close us down, we scored the rugby league trading card license, which was our gridiron. And I distributed the cards through the Sunday papers and all that stuff that I told you about before. And we made the whole 2.2 million back in one season. So we paid off all of our debts and I was back on top. So therefore I thought, well, I better keep my promise to the big guy upstairs. So we produced a TV show that I sold to a network, and it was called Dreams Can Come True. And it was all about fulfilling needy people's dreams. In other words, if they needed a house, we surprised them with a house. If they hadn't seen a relative for 20 years, we set up a reunion. And we had unbelievable response from the biggest people in the world, because the TV network said to us, look, we'll give you the TV show to run on a Sunday night up against 60 Minutes, would you believe, on another network. And we won the ratings. But you need to have some celebrities. We're a TV network, and I love the idea of dreams coming true for needy people, but you have to have some celebrities. And, we asked Michael Jordan, Steven Spielberg, Sylvester Stallone, Meatloaf, you name it, Crocodile Dundee, all of them said yes. And if I can just give you one of them, which was just a wonderful, wonderful story, and anyone can watch this, by the way, if they go to theinstituteofwow.com and just click the TV show. But can I warn you, you should have a box of Kleenex with you. This little 15-year-old boy suffered from spina bifida, and his parish priest sent us a letter and just said, is there any chance at all you could get a Michael Jordan autograph for him? And the reason why was the little boy tried to commit suicide because spina bifida is not a good prognosis. And fortunately, he failed in killing himself. And a friend of his, encouraged him to take up wheelchair basketball. Guess what? He became a member of the Australian under-16 wheelchair basketball side within 6 months. He was just a whiz. If they scored 50 points, he scored 40 of them. And we surprised him at the end of one of his games with the news that he was not only flying to America to see Michael Jordan, it was Michael Jordan's last year, to see Michael Jordan playing, but Michael Jordan would take him to lunch in the Michael Jordan restaurant in Chicago the next day. The entire stadium was in tears. And how we pulled this off is that in those days, it was fax. I put a fax through to Michael Jordan's office and gave him the story. He was in. I asked him when we were there, how do we pull this off? He said, "You're not going to believe it. I get 1 million requests a week." And he said, "I only visit my office once every 3 weeks, and I happen to be visiting the day that your fax was coming out of the machine." I pulled it out and read it, and I said to my secretary, "Make this one happen for this little Australian boy." And so he said, "It's a chance in 1 million." And so we took him over. He saw the game, and Michael Jordan came out of the kitchen of his restaurant with a birthday cake on this little boy's 15th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just, and the restaurant was packed and tears, and everyone couldn't believe it. The little boy, he was just a mess. It just tears everywhere. And Michael Jordan sat down and had lunch with him. And Michael Jordan said to him, "Well, it's your birthday. Blow out the candles and make a wish." And we've got it on tape. The little boy looks up at Michael Jordan and says, "Make a wish." "I don't need to. It's already happened." Yeah.
Amazing.
And so that TV show, as I said, we asked help from Steven Spielberg, from Sylvester Stallone, Crocodile Dundee, Meatloaf. It just goes on. Or the people that were the stars, David Duchovny from the X-Files. I could go on and on and on. And, the media sometimes paints these celebrities out as being just looking after themselves. I've got to say to you that every single one of them put their hand up and did whatever they could to make a needy person's dream come true. And, as I said, if anybody who's watching this would like to, just feel better about themselves for today, if you go to the instituteofwow.com and you look up the top of it, it says Wow TV show. But just make sure you got some Kleenex handy.
Awesome. So you said Michael Jordan told you that, this was like a 1 in a million chance that he would pull that. But to me, it feels like this life we're living is a rigged game, rigged in our favor. So how do you believe this the stuff like the guy upstairs is coordinating everything for us? What's your philosophy on all this?
Yeah, very good question, mate. I'm a Christian, and I have to say to you that throughout the roller coaster ride that we've had, where we've made it and lost it and made it and so forth, the mantra that I live with is one that Sir Winston Churchill had a famous speech when he was Prime Minister of England, and he went back to the little school that he grew up in, and the students asked him what would be some advice that he would give them. And he gave a speech which is known as the Never Give Up speech. And he just said to them, whatever happens to you in life, just never, ever, 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 ever give up. And it's just a wonderful speech. And I have to say to you that aside from having faith with the guy upstairs, I just had to, on more than one occasion, I gave you that one occasion, but there's been a couple of other times that it's been pretty dark. I just had to make sure that if I went to bed at 2:00, I put the alarm on for 6 and just never gave up. I had to feed 6 children, and that was, I'm sure for any parent, that's their main concern. And I just had to keep on getting up early, going to bed late, and just never, ever, ever, ever give up. And you know what? Every single time he comes through, you never think it at the time. You think, how like that saying is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I got to tell you, I've looked to the ceiling a few times and said, I'm strong enough. All right.
With that TV show, Dreams Can Come True, were you inspired by the Make-A-Wish Foundation? How did you come up with this idea?
Yeah. In fact, we were very closely involved with Make-A-Wish and the Starlight Foundation. So therefore when this show came on at 7:30 on a Sunday night, and by the way, Stephan, I didn't do it to make money because when I went to pitch the show to the network, Channel 10 is in Australia, I never forget it. I pitched the idea to them with a pilot. We had a famous rugby league player here in Australia called Mal Meninga that fulfilled a dream and took the little boy to a football game. And he was like the Babe Ruth of Australian football. So it was big time to take this little boy to a football game. And the little boy had a tough upbringing. And so therefore it was a wonderful dream. I played that to the TV network. And it was a man that made the decision, and he was crying. He just said to me, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable." And he said, "However, how much are you going to pay for it? Charge for it?" And I thought, I don't know. I've made lots of TV ads, but I've never made a TV program before. I was winging it, right? And I said to him, $142,000 an episode, right? And he goes, "Wow, we get," at the time, 90210 for 25 grand, we get The Simpsons for 30. And I was just about to say, oh, give me 30, right? Because it was all about fulfilling, the promise I'd made the guy upstairs. It wasn't about the money. And he said, well, you got any superstars, because for that sort of money, you're going to have celebrities. And I said, oh, we got Michael Jordan. I pulled that out of my, where. And he goes, how do you get Michael Jordan? That's unbelievable. We've been trying to get Michael Jordan forever. And I said, oh, well, I'm into doing the trading cards, and so therefore basketball cards and rugby league cards. I mean, we just, sort of know each other. It's complete BS. And as it turned out, they said, right, you've got X number of episodes. And I remember walking out of the building thinking, I've got to get Michael Jordan, right? And so that's when we put out an all points bulletin to all of the ministers and the parish priests who were anywhere around Sydney, because that's where I lived at the time. And just said, do you have anyone at all that might be doing it tough, that might be interested in Michael Jordan? And that's when we got this letter from a parish priest to say this little boy tried to commit suicide and this would be a wonderful dream. So again, the way the guy works upstairs in wonderful ways. But I have to say to you is that throughout all of that period, there was only 4 or 5 of us that were making this TV show. And when the credits come up for the TV show, and sometimes you get blown away with the number of people that are, behind the scenes, we had to put friends and relatives' names in the credits because there was only 5 of us that put this damn thing together. And we had to actually make up names. Not make up names, just use friends and relatives' names because the credits had to run for a certain, 45 seconds or whatever it might be. But I have to say, yeah, that if I was to look back on the highlight of my life, that would be it. And we charged $142,000 a show. I spent $175,000 on every show. So we certainly didn't go in it to make the money. We went in it because, look, to be honest with you, I'm sure that's the case even worse now, but I was sick and tired as a father of 6 children, turning the TV on at night time, and it was all kill, rape, maim, and destroy. It was just all bad news. And I just figured it was about time that when we had dinner at night time and sat back in the lounge, we had some good news. And, we had letters from women that said, listen, I've been married 42 years to my husband, and he's a tough bugger. I've never seen him cry tears of joy like I had when he watched your TV show. And it was just wonderful to get that sort of feedback.
Awesome. I know we're about at time, but I do have one more question. I'm curious, did you actually end up losing your house when you lost that 2.2 million, or did you manage to keep it through that rugby deal?
A fantastic question. You must be psychic. I'll tell you why. We lived in a little country town called Gloucester, which was in the Hunter Valley. It won't mean anything to overseas listeners, but it was about 2.5 hours north of Sydney in Australia. And it was a lovely 14-acre property. And, we had all the kids. And so, therefore, we had the tennis court and the little guest cabin and a couple of golf greens. And it was just, there was a little house on the prairie. It was just lovely. And that's the one that we lost, right? And as it turned out, the bank said, well, you've got to put it on the market because, we don't have any guarantee that you're going to get back on your feet. So therefore, if you don't, then at least we'll get the money from the house. I gave it to a real estate agent in town because we had to move out of that house. And would you believe we left on Mother's Day? And I'll never forget looking at my wife in the van, and she was wiping away tears from her eyes that we were losing our house or leaving on Mother's Day of all days. Anyway, as it turned out, the bank said, you've got to put it up for sale. And I thought that I had a chance of a comeback, but at that time I didn't have the notification from the rugby league that we got the trading card license. So anyway, I gave it to the real estate agent in town and I told him the truth. I said, look, this is what's happened. He said, okay, leave it with me. I said, but you've got to sell the house. He goes, yeah, okay. Well, as it turned out, the bank was in contact with the real estate agent all the time. Have you sold the house? Have you sold the house? Guess what? He told a few white lies and said that they didn't have much demand for the home, and he kept on pushing it back that he's got a few interested buyers, but they're just looking for finance and this, that, and the other. Well, guess what? The football season came and went. I had got the license. And so at the end of that 6-month period when we made the huge comeback, he handed the keys to me and said, you've still got your house, because he purposely didn't sell it, not that the bank knew that.
Wow.
Again, you have to look upstairs and say, well, that just doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah, all divinely orchestrated. Amazing. All right. Well, that's a great way to end this episode. So where should we send our listener to download that book, the free gift, and to learn more from you and perhaps even book you for an event if they're putting together a conference or anything like that?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Yeah, look, firstly, my business is theinstituteofwow.com. So it's theinstituteofwow.com. My email address, my personal email address is john@theinstituteofwow.com. And if you'd like to grab your free Big Wow Manifesto, then just simply go to Wow Manifesto, not the Wow, just wowmanifesto.com with a /gift, GIFT.
All right, John, thank you so much. And thank you, listener. I hope you are inspired to now go out there and make a difference in the world using your marketing and all the products and services that you sell. We'll catch you in the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.